Second Chances by Illuviar. This story is set at the start of Mass Effect 2. After dying at the Citadel, at the end of ME3, Commander Tia Shepard becomes the espada Tia Harrbiel, and later, after meeting her end at the hands of Aizen at the False Karakura town, she receives a second chance to stop the Reapers and save her lover Liara. AU Story, Shepard F. Liara Pairing. 1. Prologue. Disclaimer: I do not own Bleach and Mass Effect. They belong to their respective owners. This chapter was proofread by Xanthraxone. My thanks. Ah, a Solarian. Thought. I am Krugen. Speech. Part 1. Third time is the charm. She was dying again, for the second time by the hand of a man she worked for. Of course, there were few minor differences. This time she was cut down by Aizen's soul cutter. It bloody hurt. Well, at least this time there was a reasonable chance to avoid the apocalypse. She believed that the Kurosaki kid had it in himself to put down the traitorous captain. And even if the hybrid failed, there was no guarantee that Aizen would be able to defeat the so-called Spirit King. Or was it Soul King? She winced in agony. The pain and blood loss were making it hard to think. Not that it mattered. In both her lives, she had seen more than enough combat wounds to know that she was already dead, and she was holding on only because of sheer pig-headed disposition and the sliver of Reiatsu left in her brutalized body. No amount of instant regeneration or Medigel, if it would have worked on an espada, would be able to save her in her current condition. The only surprise was that somehow she was still conscious. Score 1 for Arrancar resilience. The destroyed spine, sliced right lung and collapsed left. With most of her internal organs half liquefied and her ribcage shattered, she was still not quite dead. Ironically, it was somewhat similar to the first time she died. Suffocating was covered, massive trauma too. This time she decided to pass on being cooked by falling into a planet's atmosphere and the turning into pancake by the impact with the surface. At least this time she was able to put a token fight. It was better than watching helpless how they never sufficiently damned Harper controlled her hand and forced her to shoot her mentor. Tia lied still, her last heartbeats heavy with the bitter taste of failure. She had 3 lives, so many chances, and in the end it was all for nothing. She couldn't protect her little sister at Mindoir all those years ago. Despite all the awards and publicity, her stand at Elysium was again too little too late. At least from her point of view, all the civilians she gathered for the last-ditch defense had died. It got worse, of course. The fiasco at Eden Prime, being forced to kill the mother of the woman she was failing in love with at Noviera. The death of Kaidan Alenko at Virmir, and her crowning achievement, the battle for the Citadel, where because of her decision, thousands of humans died. It got much worse after that. The Collectors. Even now she wasn't sure should she hate or pity them. After her first death and the resurrection at the hands of Cerberus, it looked like as if every decision she made was stained with the blood of the innocents. From the moment of her awakening, when the personnel of Project Lazarus was slaughtered by hacked mechs, to the desperate fight of the combined fleets in a doomed attempt to retake Earth and secure the Citadel. In the end, her hands were stained with the blood of millions, and for what? It ended with 3 bullets shot by an indoctrinated traitor. Jack Bloody Harper, the bastard that made sure the last chance of the galaxy was wasted. It was her fault. She wasn't strong enough, was not good enough to make a difference when it mattered the most. And now, as the Tres Espada, she was unable to save her fraction. The only precious people she had left. One last breath. It was almost over. Tia was ready. In the end, she prayed for peace. She had done enough, sacrificed everything, and had nothing else give. With one final heartbeat, Tia Harrbiel, once known to the galaxy at large as Tia Shepard, the first human spectre, died for the 3rd time. Part 2. A restful nap and time for a decision. Tia floated, enveloped by warm, comforting void for what felt like ages. No worries or regrets, no more nightmares about lost friends and comrades. Neither searing images of burning Earth and Palaven and the fall of Thessia. The first restful slumber she had in thousands of years. She slumbered out of time, feeling nothing. The espada was granted a bit of peace, yet it did not last. Tia was awoken by soft sunlight, bathing her exposed skin. With soft moan, she stretched her long, dormant muscles and slowly opened her azure eyes. She was lying on a sinfully comfortable bed. The room looked suspiciously like Liara's bedroom in her apartment on Ilium. It had to be a dream. The espada pinched her left arm and felt it. Shepard stood up with a start, looking around. This was her lover's home, all right, minus any traces of the attack by the agents of the Shadow Broker. Tia remembered with barely restrained emotion the day she first visited this place, that bloody damned day. It was the when she was informed by a fellow Spectre, one Televasir, that her lover was killed by agents of the fucking Shadow Broker. The fact that sweet little Liara had managed to decimate more than a platoon of his mercenaries before the bastards managed to took her down was a little comfort for Tia. She had been nearing a breakdown at the time. By all rights, she should have broken. Being resurrected and thrown into the fire again and again, with no time to recover from the psychological trauma, should have been more than any human could endure. To an outside observer, she had done her job by becoming a cold, efficient killer who did whatever was needed. Inside her own mind and heart, Tia was a mess. She had thrown herself at her countless enemies, seeking oblivion. Needless to say, none of them were up to the task, and the rest was history. Or so she thought. "She is alive now, you know," said a melodic female voice. Tia whirled around faster than human eye can follow. She was crouching in a combat stance, ready to pounce at the intruder. For her efforts, the espada was frozen in a biotic stasis field. It was a déjà vu because she stood face to face with Benezia, Liara's mum, and the Asari matriarch had incapacitated her once again. A much healthier-looking Asari matriarch smiled gently at her. This Benezia was a far cry from the shell of a woman Shepard had met on Noviera. "Calm down, child, I won't hurt you," said the Asari. With a subtle motion of her hand, she dissipated the biotic field, and Shepard fell on her backside with indignant, "Ow!" "You are wrong, dear. Tia, you did more than anyone could have asked from you. You did the impossible again and again." Still sitting on the floor, Tia sniffed and mumbled, "It wasn't enough. Everyone died." "Perhaps, yet right at this moment they aren't. My little wing is now at her office, trying to be a big bad information broker. Earth, Thessia, and Palaven are intact, and the Reapers are more than a year away." Shepard's eyes widened. "You can't mean—" She trailed off, her mind spinning, her heartbeat deafening. The meaning of what the blue woman was speaking finally registered. She was somehow back in time. It was the only logical conclusion if the clone of Benezia was speaking the truth. Anderson, almost everybody was alive at this time, and she couldn't sense any trace of deception. Though that only meant that the woman believed herself, not that it was true. "I'm not lying or delusional, dear. When we are in time at this moment is shortly before you awoke on that dreadful Cerberus station," Benezia said with a soft smile on her face. She continued speaking. "You have a choice to make. You can pass into oblivion. Or—" The matriarch left the offer unfinished, simply smiling fondly at the human woman in front of her. "A second chance?" Shepard asked quietly. Part of her wanted nothing more than an opportunity to hold Liara in her arms once again and never let go, no matter the price. But truth to be told, she was tired of conflict, sick of deciding who should live and die. "Ah, Liara, my blue angel." In the end, it was the easiest decision she ever made. She chose life. What was left inheritable of the woman who was Tia Shepard could not miss the hope, however forlorn, to stop the Reapers. So she chooses to fight again. There also was her reason to be something more than merely a lethal weapon, and the chance to save her lover from an untimely death. She chose Liara and herself, however selfish it may be, considering what was coming. It was as if a switch was pushed. Benezia grinned widely. Her silent prayers were answered. The wounded woman, hoping for oblivion, was gone. In front of the matriarch stood the living legend, one of the deadliest beings this galaxy has ever seen, the Reapers included. Tia Harrbiel, the Shepherd, a war hero. Spectre, espada. Benezia's voice thundered with power, not her own. Tia could sense that the Asari was a conduit for raw energy, power so vast, making her own great spiritual power pale in comparison. It was like comparing a single candle with the rays of the sun at high noon. She felt an immense sense of warmth and acceptance before a torrent of energy slammed into her, and she knew no more. Part 3. No rest for the wicked. Rise and shine, dear, rise and shine. Tia's slumber was interrupted by the voice of matriarch Benezia. Shepard shuddered. There was something just wrong in the way the elder Asari was speaking to her like she was a little girl. For a really brief moment, she entertained the hope that everything that happened to her was just a really nasty and vivid nightmare. Tia opened her eyes and looked around. No joy. Vague, familiar medbay. Check. Bloody loud alarms, check. The really irritating Cerberus contestant for Queen Bitch of the Universe, aka Miranda Lawson, droning on the intercom. Yeah, you guessed it. Check again. Couple of points before I leave you to your new life, Shepard. Benezia's tone brooked no argument. You are now a human Arrancar hybrid stuck in your physical body, so take care. You are not as tough as you used to be back in Hueco Mundo. And no, you should not hunt down Timmy, as you call him, before cleaning the mess with the collectors once and for all. That earned the matriarch an indignant pout. Can't I blow him up just a little, just one teeny kero, please? Shepard's attempt to sway Benezia with the ancient puppy eyes technique, which effect was neutralized by the bloodthirsty smile stretching her lips. Nope. Benezia deadpanned. Don't forget your Zanpakuto. It's a bit different. You can't drown reapers after all, no matter how amusing the idea might be. And do not let my daughter get killed again. The last sentence was screamed with enough force to make Tia fall from the examination table she was sitting on and almost deafened her. Damn, and I thought Liara was a screamer. Shepard, get up. This time the banshee screech came from Miranda. Damn it, Miri, Tia thought. The resurrected woman got up and went to a nearby storage locker, toning out the wail of sirens. If her memory served her right, there should be a N7 armor and a pistol in that compartment. Over the locker was a plain katana, sheathed in a metallic scabbard with integrated magnetic clamps. Shepard broke the old record for getting in an armor. Her drill instructor would be proud, the grizzled old bastard. On her way out, she had to avoid an exploding container. Seriously, what was that bloody thing doing in a medbay? She wondered. Tia left the room only to be shot at by a Loki mech. The disruptor ammo it was packing permitted the grain-sized bullets to pass straight through her shields. She was hit in the armor's chest plate, which now was the proud bearer of 4 brand-new holes. It hurt a lot, however she was relieved to see that the armor combined with her hierro were able to stop the projectiles from piercing her skin. Note to self, don't get shot with AP ammo. Tia really wasn't sure if her hierro would be able to stop such rounds. When you add the little fact that she didn't know how much punishment her body could take now, Shepard would have to act more carefully from now on. Meanwhile, the mechs were continuing to shoot at her cover. Let's see. Shoot it, cut it to pieces, or... Tia leaned out of cover and pointed her index finger at the automaton. Bala, she whispered, and a yellow beam of energy shot from her finger and struck its chest plate. The ensuing explosion scattered metal pieces all over the room. Oh, how she loved explosions, and this was her least powerful Bala. Smiling wolfishly, she stalked forward, blowing all mechs in front of her, while trying to remember if there was something valuable between her and Jacob. Ah, yes, a safe in a room with couple of malfunctioning mechs. She blew up the said machines and sliced the safe open with her Zanpakuto. No need to play safecracker this time around. Tia stashed the credits she just looted in a spare compartment on her armor and frowned. Shepard had used only a couple of dozen balas so far, yet she could feel the small drain on her Reiatsu reserves. And it was restoring very slowly. A mere fraction of what it used to be, she'll have to be more careful how she spent her Reiatsu. It could be a long time until it replenish. She grumbled and went forward with katana and pistol in her hands. That was not as fun. A grenade launcher and few more scrapped automatons later, she found Jacob Taylor trading gunfire with a little horde of the pesky Lokis. Tia was getting irritated. Yeah, that should work, she thought. With a wave of her hand, a Kero was seen across the chasm, dividing them from the robots. The explosion obliterated the platform on the other side and left Jacob speechless as an added bonus. That was Reiatsu well spent. Besides, if it all went as she remembered, there should be not enough room for such displays on the rest of the station. Not to mention the possibility to vent them in space if she hit the wrong spot. Shepard, what the hell was that? Taylor screamed at her after gathering his wits. A very well-aimed grenade, she said sheepishly while waving to the grenade launcher strapped to her back. Let's not freak him out too much. He's one of the good guys after all. She really didn't want to explain right now. Not that anyone would have believed her if she told the truth, even if she had any proof beside her abilities. That wasn't. The damn launcher never left your waist. And it is not shooting bloody yellow energy rays, the ex-Marine exclaimed. Shepard shrugged her shoulders. Advanced bionics? She said with a small smile. The Cerberus agent shook his head in exasperation. Were you always like this, or should I blame Miranda? He asked. She sounds as a fun girl. Can't wait to meet her. Shepard chirped happily. Truth to be told, once Tia managed to get out the stick stuck into Miranda's arse, Miri had turned out to be a great company. Let's get out of this dead trap. Explanations can wait. Taylor nodded, still a bit rattled. From here on, events proceeded more or less as she remembered them. They found Wilson with his self-inflicted wound in the server room. Shepard smiled at him sweetly and kneeled next to him. You know, about now there are 3 people alive on this station, 4 if Miranda is still up and kicking. Jacob over there, she pointed at the black man, had plenty opportunities to shoot me in the back in the last few minutes. And he did not. Williams gulped. He had a really bad feeling about this. Miranda, if she's still with us, is the one who awoke me before a Loki could make its way to the med bay and put few rounds in my pretty head. You, on the other hand. Shepard grabbed his hurt leg, gripping his wound and squeezed. The scientist screamed like a little girl. Jacob whirled around and pointed his shotgun at Tia. What the hell, Shepard? Have you lost your fucking mind? Ah, what he said. Are you insane, woman? Wilson added his 2 cents. The espada grinned maliciously at her victim and nodded to Taylor. We heard the gunshot over the comms. There is no sight of mechs in this room, and as you said, he has no business here. Considering that there are not many people left alive. She squeezed again and hissed. Talk, now, why are you working for? Why do you want me dead? A few seconds of screaming and cursing later, Williams relented. Enough, I'll talk. Stop already. It's the Shadow Broker. He's paying a fortune for your body. That bastard again. Add another reason to the list. Why Tia was going to gut the bastard. Not that she did not have more than enough already. Good to know, she growled and grabbed the traitor on the chin. With a sharp, powerful motion of her arm, Tia broke his neck. Let's get out of here, she said. Jacob shook his head at the brutal display and followed Shepard's lead. The incendiary mods Jacob usually carried on his guns were not as effective against mechs, so he was glad when Tia produced disruptor ammo, which she had looted earlier from the rogue droids. A quick field modification of the pair's weapons later, and they made a short work of the remaining mechs. Soon they were at the doors leading to the shuttle bays. Jacob entered his codes, unlocking it, and they almost hit a fatal snag. The door slid into the walls and revealed Miranda, who was pointing a pistol between them. The Cerberus operative had come a hairbreadth from getting his brains blown out. All Shepard saw in the first moment was a gun pointing in her direction and acted, her own pistol whipping in the air. As her index finger was curling around the trigger, the owner of the gun registered. Tia huffed in vexation. Miranda, be careful where you point that toy. I almost shot you by reflex. Shepard, Miri exclaimed. Shepard shook her head and started cursing quietly. A shuttle ride with Lawson, who at this period of time was the Cerberus premier cheerleader, and lots of awkward questions. Oh boy, this was not going to be enjoyable, although she must. Might have fun this time. Her cheerful grin made Miranda cringe. Miranda Lawson would soon begin to regret not installing control chip in Shepard's head, and that would be before the woman was awake for a day. Anne, I hope that you enjoy this version better. Please review. 2. Chapter 1, Freedom's Progress. Disclaimer, I do not own Bleach and Mass Effect. A Solarian. Thoughts, I am Krugen. Speech. Part 1, of Shuttle Rides and Elusive Men. Tia and the two Cerberus operatives were traveling in a Kodiak shuttle. The usually cramped compartment of the combat cockroach was reasonably comfortable with only 3 people in it. For a military vehicle, that is, Another shuttle ride, one Jacob Taylor, ready to start drooling between me and Miri, and everybody's favorite nosy Cerberus cheerleader. This will be entertaining. Shepard smiled innocently to the woman sitting in front of her. So you are Miranda, the woman who put me back together, right? She asked, feinting ignorance and hoping that her acting skills somehow survived her multiple deaths. The Cerberus operative gave her magnificent, obviously fake smile. Yes, I'm that Miranda Lawson. Did you expect the Tooth Fairy or something? Cerberus second in command? Tia asked, and was awarded with the priceless sight of the woman new in certain circles as Miss Ice Queen, losing her composure for a moment. Then Miranda glared at Jacob, who raised his hands in surrender. Don't look at me, I didn't tell her anything. He tried to defend himself. Well, the logos painted everywhere were a dead giveaway. You could as well have put giant neon signs. As for the rest, you wouldn't believe what information lay around in unsecured terminals and data pads, exclaimed Shepard, coming to the rescue. She continued speaking. It's the chief of security's fault that so much sensitive information was just lying around, she added. Taylor cringed and looked at his feet. Oops. I guess he was the chief of security in the station. Didn't know that. Another note to self, next time I'm sent to redo the past, I'll have to ask for data chip with all the relevant information. And a refresher course on the basic facts wouldn't hurt. For the Espada, those events were so long ago that she had forgotten almost all details. At least Miranda was glaring daggers at Jacob. She had apparently forgotten Shepard for the moment. Tia got a lucky break for the moment, because after stopping her attempts to kill Jacob with an evil look, Miri just asked Tia a few generic questions, the answers to which she remembered. Even better, after being asked who the human counselor was, Shepard had an inspiration. Cerberus was in for a rude awakening. That traitorous son of a bitch Udina, too. While they were traveling to another Cerberus facility, the Spectre was sending silent thanks to whatever guardian angel was looking out for her. After all, it was a miracle that Miranda hadn't gotten on her case about the usage of Kero and Bala. She wondered if it could be explained as advanced biotics for the moment. Only one tiny problem with that plan, though. She wasn't a biotic, at least before that little accident with the damned collector cruiser. With a bit of luck, she might be able to keep her abilities from Timmy until she got her hands on the new Normandy. Then things would become really interesting. On that note, she'll have to be more careful in flinging hollow attacks when she had other acceptable options. In the short term, that would make her life a bit easier. Long-term, Tia knew it couldn't be helped. She only hoped that her ultimate fate won't be to end as someone's lab rat. Minuteman Station, Horsehead Nebula. They arrived without accident. After a short pit stop at the armory, where Shepard decked herself into a suit of Kestel armor, she proceeded to the comm. It was time for a chat with Timmy. To say that Tia was a little nervous about the meeting would be the understatement of the century. She really did not know if she would be able to keep her cool when speaking with the smug bastard. Well, no time like the present. She took a moment to steel herself and entered a small round room. Tia stepped into the holotank and was enveloped by orange light. A moment later, she was standing face to face with the holographic projection of Jack Harper. Yup, the same arrogant sob she remembered. She took a deep breath and slipped into her full espada mode. Her voice was cold and emotionless, her face an iron, expressionless mask. You are the leader of Cerberus, she declared in an indifferent tone. Commander Shepard, he said. Let's cut the pleasantries. You did not bring me back without a very good reason. He looked at her for a moment. Harper took a drag of his cigar and answered, You need to put your feelings aside. Humanity is against one of the greatest treats of our brief existence. The Reapers, she deadpanned. Oh, how she hated those overgrown squids. Good to see your memory is still intact. How are you feeling? Rather well for a dead woman, was her curt reply. Timmy stranded up and continued speaking. We are at war. Not one wants to admit it, but humanity is under attack. Behind her iron mask, Tia cringed. It was a long time since she was a human. Her current situation, an amalgamation of human Arrancar and cybernetics, made for a confusing existence. At least thanks to her hollow side, it appeared that she was able to keep her feeling under control. If it wasn't for that small blessing, she would have probably went insane in the short time after her latest revival. You simply don't go through all the horrors she survived without deep scars. In hindsight, most hollows were rather emotionless for a reason. It helped keep them from total insanity. Her new employer continued his speech about the missing colonies. She vaguely remembered the conversation from the last time. Independent human colonies in the Terminus systems vanishing without a trace, all conveniently ignored by the Council and the Alliance, which was still busy rebuilding its fleets after the battle with Sovereign. They were stretched too thin to send forces at those sectors. The colonies there were with the purpose to be outside of the Alliance's influence. On that note, they were too successful, it seemed. "Let me guess," she murmured quietly. "Another colony has gotten dark, and you want me to investigate. If you are right about the Reapers being involved, just point me in the right direction." "Miranda, though, you'll be hesitant. She isn't usually wrong. I have a shuttle ready to take you to Freedom's Progress, the latest colony to be abducted. Miranda and Jacob will brief you." "I'll get it done," she said. "I brought you back. It's up to you to do the rest." Shepard smirked inwardly. "Meaning, do my dirty work and I'll discard you afterwards." "No, not this time." The meeting went rather well. Jacob obviously kept his mouth shut about the stunt she pulled out earlier that day. Now she hoped that the mission will be done before Cerberus units retake the Lazarus facility and send Timmy security videos of her hollow abilities, provided that they did not just cut their losses and blast the station out of the stars. On the other hand, Shepard was reasonably sure that she could handle the security forces on the station and capture the Normandy if it all went foobar. But that would mean endangering Joker and Dr. Chakwas needlessly. She believed that they were already on the facility, so the plan for now was to go to the colony, secure it the old-fashioned way, with guns blazing and lots of explosions, if she had any say in how the mission would proceed. Considering her love of all things that go boom, she once again wondered how, as a Arrancar, she ended with control over water. It was mind-boggling. Another trip to the armory was in order. No joy, only standard weaponry. She pouted while grabbing an Avenger AR and a Mantis sniper. Tia chose not to carry a shotgun. She had her sword for close combat, plus her not inconsiderable strength. Hell, now she probably was able to kick Krogan ass with impunity. That thought was accompanied by a vicious smile. The next Krogan who decided to charge her was in for a nasty surprise. Shepard exited the armory and went to retrieve her new sidekicks. Time for yet another boring shuttle flight. This time she decided to sleep through the briefing. Part 2 of Paranoid Quarians and Irritated Mechs, Colony Freedom's Progress, Terminus Systems. After reading the Riot Act to her new minions on the way down, Tia felt strangely refreshed. Her short nap did wonders, or perhaps it was scaring Miranda and Jacob shitless. Ah, the wonders of channeling her old DI drill instructor, backed up with a spike of killing intent and spiced up with a bit of spiritual power. Shepard smiled smugly. She was quite sure that Miranda and Jacob would follow orders and won't give her any shit while on the surface. And seeing Miranda Lawson of her high horse was priceless. Tia felt a pang of regret about handling her friend that way, but it was a very small one. This Miranda was not her Miri, not yet at least. The shuttle landed and they disembarked, weapons drawn and sweeping the landing pad for hostiles. As expected, the place was quiet as a graveyard. No enemies in sight. The colony looked like it was built with standard prefabricated houses, blocky, stackable, and ugly. Hell, Garius looked better after taking a rocket to the face. Shepard moved on point, looking for anything out of place. The first building they entered was void of life. Taylor said what they all were thinking. "It looks like Every just left in the middle of dinner." It was a bit disconcerting, just like those old horror movies, which Tia used to enjoy. Next was an open loading area full of crates and parts of heavy machinery. No sight of battle or the colonists. On the bright side, Shepard retrieved a bit of salvage. Her compulsion to take everything in sight, which wasn't nailed to the ground, was back in full power. That habit had developed after her induction to the ranks of the Spectres. To her surprise, looting her enemies turned out to be the major income source for her. For all their power, the council agents were often left to finance their missions by themselves. So Shepard had few alternatives to salvaging everything she could get her hands on. She did not need the strings attached from getting a major corporation as a sponsor. No hostiles, evidence or colonists so far. It was booing. The Spectre thought, then she winced. It was not wise to taunt Mr. Murphy. Naturally, the bastard was listening. Just as the team exited the loading area trough massive double doors, they walked into an improvised ambush. Across a chasm, on a terrace of another prefab home, 3 Loki mechs were standing. To make things more interesting, on their right were a couple more of these. The robots were on a higher ground too. It was worse, as she should have expected after taunting fate. Tia heard the sounds of at least a couple of Fenris mechs activating. These little buggers resembled dogs and had the disturbing tendency to blow up when critically damaged. "Take cover," Shepard commanded. She took out her sniper and lined up a shot. Her index finger softly curled around the trigger and she fired, the powerful bullet decapitating an offending Loki. Jacob used a biotic pull to levitate another mech across the low wall it was using for cover and dropped it in the chasm. Miranda caved the torso of the third with a warp, eliminating the last enemy on that flank. That left 2 more Lokis, which were laying suppressing fire for the charging trio of robotic dogs. Shepard folded the mantis and returned it to the magnetic clamps on her back. Then, when the Fenris were a couple of meters away, she drew her sword in a fluid motion and struck like an angry viper. Her katana sliced through the automatons without any resistance, like a hot knife through butter. Tree lightning strikes, and the machines were turned into scrap metal. While dealing with the dogs, she had drawn her predator pistol. When she finished the last Fenris, Tia started shooting at the Loki on the left, tearing it apart. Meanwhile, her teammates took down the last one. Those are the colony's security mechs. Someone must have reprogrammed them to attack on sight. Miranda nodded absent-mindedly, looking at Shepard's sword. It looked like one of the close combat weapons for the Nemesis program. Lawson once again wondered how the Spectre was able to get her hands on one on the Lazarus station. For a moment she almost asked, but thought better. She decided that discretion was the better part of valor. There was something about the woman who she had resurrected that unnerved her. Like she was an apex predator who you should not irritate. Miranda suppressed a shudder, remembering the dressing down the 2 Cerberus operatives had received on the way down. Shepard had made abundantly clear who was boss. For a moment the Spectre was exhibiting an incredible murderous aura. It was simply unreal. Miranda had thought that Shepard's mere presence was enough to cause her death. Oh, how she regretted not going behind the Elusive's man-back and installing a control chip in the Spectre's head. Next building was a dormitory, complete with a safe, which Shepard cut open with her soul cutter and looted its contents. Before leaving the building and running into a couple of mechs, she swiped a pack of Medigel from a medpack placed on nearby table. With the automatons taken out by massed automatic fire, the trio moved to the next building, where Shepard was in for a surprise. A quartet of Quarians were bunched together, looking over a holographic map of the colony. Tree males who had a military bearing, probably migrant fleet marines, and oddly familiar female. The 2 groups looked at each other for a moment. Just long enough for the Cerberus logo on Miranda and Jacob's armors to register with the aliens, and pandemonium ensured. Everyone except Tia and the female Quarian had drawn a weapon. Score 1 for Cerberus' stellar reputation. The Spectre wondered if Timmy has managed to piss off the Quarians lately. Oh, who was she kidding? Of course he had. Cerberus made friends, everywhere their agents went. It was a good thing. Tia had decided to wear only a targeting visor instead of a full helmet on this deployment. Even better, there were no Cerberus logos on her equipment. The reason for this being a fortunate turn of events was the reaction of the female Quarian. She squealed in shock. "Wait, Shepard!" Tia grinned sheepishly. How could she not recognize the girl, Tali Zora, all grown up? One of the Quarian Marines growled, "I'm not taking any chances with Cerberus officers." Got to love armed standoffs. If one of those imbeciles started a firefight and hurt Tali, Shepard was going to eviscerate them all. "Stand down, lower your weapons," Tali commanded. The Marines looked unsure for a second but complied. Shepard, is that really… Tali trailed off. Tia smiled fondly at her friend. I hope that Geth data helped with your pilgrimage. The tension drained from the female Quarian lithe frame. She turned towards the leader of the Marines and ordered them to put their weapons away. The leader of the Marines cursed, but did as he was told, and folded his shotgun, placing it at a hard point on his back. Why would your old commander work for Cerberus? He exclaimed. You told us she hated them. Tali's shoulders slumped a bit, and she looked at Shepard. Tia could almost imagine her looking like a lost puppy behind her purple helmet. Just as the kid she saved from Fist's men ages ago. Or was it just a couple of years? Fuck, at this rate she was guaranteed to make serious mistakes. Tia shook her head and looked at Tali. I'm not with them. Unfortunately, they are the only ones willing to look at the abducted colonies. One of the Marines, Praza, threw his 2 cents as well. Tali, you can't seriously consider trusting Cerberus, he exclaimed. Don't worry, I'm not trusting them either, Shepard added with mischievous grin. Under her helmet, Tali smiled as well. She knew that smile very well. Cerberus has bitten more than they can handle. Time to defuse the situation, the Quarian engineer thought. I'm not trusting anyone, Tali snapped at Praza, but we'll need help to search the colony. One of our people was here on pilgrimage. His name was Vita. We came to find him. Delirious Quarian with army of mechs and in possession on evidence implicating the collectors in the abductions. When she thought about mechs, she winced. Now she remembered. That imbecile Praza went ahead with his squad and got squashed by a heavy mech. How to fix that mess? Well, I have 2 problems. With my Cerberus minions around, I can't use my hollow powers and I need to forestall Praza's idiotic charge. What was that saying about couple of problems fixing each other? While Shepard was deep in thought, Jacob asked why they thought that Vita was still alive. The answer caused Taylor to theatrically facepalm, while Tali shifted nervously. Right, sick, paranoid, Quarian who apparently was a bit strange at best of times, with an army of killer robots. Oh joy! Tia smiled sweetly at the Quarians. Obviously, with the notable exception of Tali, I don't trust you. And you won't trust Cerberus as far as you can throw a dreadnought. Empathic noting ensured. I'm guessing that you have at least one more fire team, right? She asked Tali. The Quarian woman nodded and pointed to the door behind her. Shepard's smile grew brighter. That is what we'll do, my faithful minions. Tia waved at Jacob and Miranda. We'll go with your other team, the 5 of us. She pointed to Tali and Praza's squad. We'll take the alternative route, just to make sure that no backstabbing happens during this little exercise. Before Miranda could protest, Shepard released a bit of killer intent at the Cerberus operative shutting her up. I am in charge, she growled, making a decent imitation of angry Krogan. Move it, we don't have whole day. When Miranda and Jacob practically jumped at the opportunity to escape Shepard's ire, Tali giggled. Yes, Shepard is really back, she thought. Few minutes later, after putting decent distance between themselves and the Cerberus operatives, Shepard whispered to Tali, After we save your friend, I can use your help. Shepard, I'd love to come with you, but I have responsibilities to the flotilla. After we find Vita, I have an important mission. Tali looked at Shepard and gulped. She knew that expression too. Investigating dark matter activity on Hailstorm, right? That tidbit of information brought their procession to an abrupt halt. How? Tali screeched. That was supposed to be classified. Well, the elusive man has his fingers in many pies. In hindsight, probably it was even true that Cerberus had info on the mission even this early. Praza glared at her, cursing quietly. Tali, please wait a bit. I need to recruit few people, and then I intend to screw Cerberus. I'll even help with Hailstorm. I have the feeling that it will be crawling with Geth, the espada whispered. Tali tilted her helmeted head to the left and looked inquisitively at Shepard for a full minute. Then she shrugged and asked cheerfully, What do you have in mind? Tia smiled, looking like a big bipedal cat who just has eaten a canary. Here is what we'll do, she whispered quietly. The short planning session dubbed How to Ruin Timmy's Day was concluded and they continued to advance towards Vita's last known position. Taking out the mechs turned out to be a child's play between Tali's hacking and the overloads deployed by the Marines. Tia got to shoot only a single Loki. On the bright side, she was able to liberate nearly 30,000 credits from various safes, data pads, and salvage. Soon her Quarian team was in sight of the warehouse where Vita was hiding. Yeah, that one with a nice open killing ground in front and 2 heavy mechs. Wait, what? There was only one the last time? Shepard wanted to scream. She scanned the open space and nodded to herself. There had been another one in the previous timeline. It was broken then. However, obviously, this was not the case now. Decisions. Charge the mechs and probably lose Quarians and needlessly endanger Tali or… Tia clicked her radio. Miranda, where is your group? We are 2 minutes out, came the curt reply. Splendid. Shepard turned to Tali and her group and said, I'm about to use some advanced biotics on the mechs. Please don't mention it to my minions and keep it out of any after-action reports for a couple of weeks. It will make our plans for Cerberus easier. Tia received reluctant nods from Praza and his men. Thanks, she smiled at them. What followed was a sight which in the months and years to come would inspire awe and wonder, not to mention terror, among the various inhabitants of the galaxy. She strode boldly towards the mechs, pointed her index fingers at them, and to the surprise of her small audience, balls of yellow energy gathered at her fingertips. Shepard's quiet word was forever engraved in their minds. Zero! Twin beams of energy shot from her fingertips and engulfed the unfolding robots. 2 massive explosions later, and it was over. Shepard looked at the Quarians and thought that she should sweat dropped. They were frozen, most likely with jaws hanging open. Tali Praza? Tia asked meekly. Nope, no one was home. She groaned and thought, damn, I broke them. Her Cerberus minions choose that moment to appear with their Quarian escort at tow. Jacob looked at the smoking craters, then at Shepard and shook his head. I don't want to know. Bloody maniac, he muttered. A couple of minutes later, when her Quarians got out of their stupor, the mission was promptly completed. They found Vita passed out. After a bit of negotiating for appearances suck, Shepard decided to take off his Omni-tool and leave the boy with Tali and her crew. One glare was enough to shut down Miranda's protests. Part 3. Enter the Normandy Mk2. After a mercifully short debriefing with Timmy and agreeing to work with Cerberus, Tia was reintroduced to Joker. He limped from behind her and said, Hey, Commander. Just like the old times, huh? Good to see you again, she exclaimed and embraced him gently. She was careful not to break his brittle bones. Look who is talking. I saw you get spaced. She smiled, saying, I got lucky. And thought, and depending on the point of view, with even more strings attached than the last time. They walked to the docking bay, while the lieutenant informed her how everything had flown apart after her death. Let's not forget the cover-up made by the Council. Oh, she'll have to deal with them too. The new Normandy was as awe-inspiring as the first time she saw her. She was a beautiful ship, her ship. And let's not forget EDI. The crew reactions after her unshackling will be hilarious. First things first. Introduction to the crew, checking the Cerberus staff on the vessel, saying hi to the doctor, and heading for Omega to bail out Garius's scaly ass. Not to forget Morden, too. It was just as she remembered. From the Joker giddiness caused by his precious leather seats, Gabby's and Ken's friendly banter, Chief Granger's so-called meals, which could be used as WMDs in a pinch, to the reunion with Dr. Chakwas, note to self, get her a case of Ceres ice brandy, and finally, EDI's developing personality and sense of humor. Tia set course for Omega and went to her cabin to take a shower and catch a bit of shut-eye. After disembarking from the elevator, she looked around her quarters. They were the same, mostly. Her ship collection was non-existent, the large fish tank was empty, and most importantly, her space hamster was still in the bloody shop on the Citadel. Change of plans, save Garius, fuck up Cerberus and rescue her hamster. Who said that she didn't have her priorities straight? Anne, please read and review. In the next chapters, I will go in-depth about the weapon systems that will be used in this story. It is a bit different from ME2 and 3. While thermal clips do exist, most weapons, except some snipers and heavy weaponry, can shoot dozens or even hundreds of shots before overheating. Thermal clips, when viable, can be used as a replacement heat sink, allowing to bypass the longer period needed for cooldown when compared to ME1. In the events preceding the Reaper invasion, the various firearms would have a solid advantage compared to the available defenses. For the time being, the weapon technology has outpaced its defensive counterparts. 3. A visit to Omega. Disclaimer: I do not own Bleach and Mass Effect. Part 1. The Queen. Tia awoke refreshed. Whole night's sleep without nightmares, which was a welcome change. She stretched, her mind already spinning and planning. Shepard went to the bathroom for a quick shower, making a mental checklist. Her stomach growled, anointing item the first, breakfast, and item 1.1, avoiding Chief Rupert cooking at all costs. 5 minutes later, she was ready. In a moment of inspiration, Tia went to her armor locker and found an emergency supply of energy bars. They were harder than cardboard, with similar texture and, most importantly, bland and tasteless. Compared to the patented Chief's Surprise TM, which without a doubt awaited her at the mess hall, the bars were close to 5-course meal. She finished her snack and headed to the armory. It was time for her inner gun nut to play. Tia nodded absent-mindedly to Jacob, her eyes shining brightly as she was ogling the goodies. She had to apply a lot of conscious effort to close her jaw and stop drooling. Apparently Christmas came early this year. First, every girl's best friend, the pistol. It should be noted that all of Shepard's best friends are under the WMD category. The espada pouted. There were just predators and a case with phalanx guns. Phalanx it is. Tia took one weapon from the case and went to the closest workbench. She disassembled the gun and inspected its parts before checking the available mods. She added advanced heat sink and a close-range stunner. You never know when you'll need to bring in someone alive. Next were the assault rifles. This time, Shepard managed to keep her drooling to bare minimum. There were cases with Avenger, Mattock, Vindicator, and even the new Falcons. She grabbed a M96 Mattock. With her enhanced strength, it was light like a feather. Shepard added better heat sink and a stability dampener, which combined with the rather good integrated scope, made one mean gun. 40 shots on full auto before overheating, each nearly as strong as a sniper. Just beautiful. The heavy weapons selection dampened her giddiness a bit. Only grenade launcher and couple of experimental, a singularity projector and an arch thrower. She picked up the projector. Being able to fry shields and electronics and people was always good. Next were the snipers, lots of drooling ensured. Tia was ready to start bouncing from the walls, an actual M98 Widow anti-material rifle. There was no contest. Last but not least, her favorite. All nice, heartwarming toys that go boom in the night. And did I mention that our dear Commander Shepard is a bloody pyromaniac? Oh, Tia crooned, looking over a selection of frag and incendiary grenades. She got 4 of each and a couple of flashbangs. A bit of old-fashioned shock and awe can come in handy. She added 4 blocks of politique for a good measure. They were a present for one specific gunship. Now she needed to pick up ammo mods, and the fun was over. She made her choice fast: shredder for the pistol, incendiary for the AR, and finally an explosive for her sniper. With that ammo, she should be able to handle light vehicles if it was needed. Shepard finished just in time for their arrival at Omega. Few minutes after docking, Jacob and Miranda arrived at the airlock. It was a miracle. Tia shook her head and blinked owlishly at the unearthly sight. Miranda had gotten out of here 2 sizes too small catsuit and was wearing a black armor with orange markings. Jacob was wearing a suit of Kestrel armor, just like Shepard. The only difference was his recon hood, while Tia had once again a targeting visor. The commander waved them into the airlock and followed suit. While the pressure was equalized, she declared, "Welcome to the most wretched hive and villainy in the explored galaxy." She added in deadpan tone, Cerberus excluded, of course, which earned her a glare from Lawson while Jacob chuckled. "Yup, he's salvageable. However, our dear cheerleader will need a work. So little time and too many people whose heads I need to mess up," she thought. Yuppie. The bloody airlock opened. The damn thing was slower than that on the old Normandy. Shepard and her team finally disembarked, only to be accosted by a greeting committee before taking a dozen steps of the ship. First was an elder Solarian that had barely enough time before being scarred off by one of Arya's thugs, a fucking Batarian. If there was one species which Shepard hated with a passion, they were it. She suppressed the urge to strangle him and just glared. He was just telling her that she wasn't as subtle as she thought. That statement caused a raised eyebrow. Me, subtle? I should shoot this slandering bastard. She ranted mentally. Must not kill, must not kill. She chanted silently. After ordering them to Afterlife to meet Arya, he left. Tia's right hand was twitching towards her pistol. Before she can draw and shoot the smug bastard in the back, EDI decided to add her 2 cents. Apparently, after a bit of inconspicuous hacking, she found out that Mordin Solus had clinic in the lower parts of the station and was dealing with an honest-to-God plague. On the other hand, Archangel, aka Tia's buddy, Garrus Vakarian, had managed to piss off the 3 premier merc outfits on the station, and they were together gunning for his scaly ass. It was good to know that Garrus was still able to piss of people almost as good as her. EDI added one last bit of useful info. Zaid Masani was on the station. While heading to the lioness den, Shepard spotted a scruffy-looking human dragging a wounded Batarian. Ah, good old Zaid, making great first impression. The wounded Batarian won the mercenary lots of goodwill. Grinning, Tia made a beeline to her favorite merc. Rex would have had that title, but he was a clan leader these days. When she got near, she asked exuberantly, "Zaid Masani?" He looked at her suspiciously. "Yes, that's me. You must be Commander Shepard. I heard we have a galaxy to save." She nodded and asked, "You've been briefed, right?" "I've done my homework. Cerberus sent me the relevant data." "Splendid. You ready for action?" "Just need to deliver this package." Zaid pointed to the Batarian. "No time for that. Can't risk Garrus getting himself shot. Time to lay the bait." "No problem. You wouldn't like to be on the current mission anyway." Zaid's answer was a raised eyebrow. "Yeah, we'll need to kill lots of Bloodpack, Eclipse and Blue Suns mercs and save their target." Masani perked up. "Blue Suns, you say?" "Yeah, as I said, you won't want to be part of this mission. Professional courtesy, right? After all, we'll have to kill them all," she added cheerfully. Zaid drew his pistol and shot the Batarina between the eyes. "Dead it is," he murmured. "Lots of Blue Suns to kill, you say?" "I'm in," he exclaimed with bloodthirsty grin. Shepard answered with similar but more sinister grin. Masani went for it, bait, hook and line. Miranda shuddered. "Sweet mother of God, there are 2 of them, Shetho." Lawson started thinking that she may have to reconsider her chosen line of work. Short time later, they arrived at Afterlife. The team was immediately admitted through the front door. They entered a lined with sofas tunnel-shaped room leading to the club. On the left, at the middle of the room, were a trio of armed Batarians. When Shepard passed by them, their leader growled at her, "What are you looking at?" She smiled sweetly and hissed, "Trash." Before anyone can act, she exploded in action. Tia struck their leader with enough force to cave in his skull. He hit the wall, already dead, with the sickening sound of breaking bones. Next was the shotgun carrying Goon on the right. He fell after a lightning-fast elbow strike crushed his trachea. Shepard grabbed the assault rifle of the last one with her left hand and drew him closer. She grabbed his neck with her right hand and broke it with a deft motion of her wrist. "Well, that was therapeutic," Tia declared. "And if you are wondering, after Mindoir, when the Batarians are concerned, Shepard's reasonable side leaves through the nearest airlock and mayhem ensures." Afterlife looked like a typical nightclub. Low lighting, neon lights, too loud music, and scantily clad Asari shaking their blue arses. The last one wouldn't be half bad if it wasn't for one glaring omission. They were not Liara. Shepard headed to the back of the club where heavy armed men were guarding the staircases. Time to meet Arya. When they got near the Queen of Omega, a Batarian guard holding a scanner stopped them. "That is close enough," the lone Asari at the top of the stairs commanded. A cue for armed standoff, Shepard's team against a dozen bodyguards. Deciding that this is not the best moment to piss off Arya, Shepard said, "I'm guessing that he isn't scanning for weapon," patting her pistol. Arya turned her head to the right, looking behind her shoulder. "Can't be too careful with dead specters. It could be anyone wearing your face." Tia waited to be cleared by the scanner before saying, "You are the woman to ask if you need questions answered on this rock." Arya turned around and looked at the Spectre. "Depends on the questions." Shepard smiled. "Let's cut to the chase." "You are Omega," she declared. Arya paced in front of Tia while talking. "But you need something. More. Everyone does." Forestalling the coming tirade, the Espada said, "The Omega's golden rule, don't fuck with Arya." The Queen gave her a small smile, "And if you forget, someone will throw your pretty ass of the nearest airlock." Arya sat down and motioned to Shepard to do the same. The Asari matriarch asked what she can do for Tia. The Espada asked about Archangel and Mordin, receiving basically the same info which EDI was able to gather. At least she got permission to go into the quarantine zone for the doctor, and direction for a recruiting station for freelancers, basically a cannon fodder to be thrown at Garrus. Arya's declaration that Omega didn't care what Shepard did was pure bullshit. For the Asari, it was a win-win situation unless the Spectre was after her. It was guaranteed that Mordin won't leave until the plague is dealt with, in which case it was clear who would take the credit. As for Archangel, no matter what happens, Shepard, a Spectre, would be able to take out lots of mercs, thus strengthening Arya's hold on the station. The recruitment station was a small room on the first floor of Afterlife, complete with Batarian Blue Sun's merc, acting as a recruiter. All she needed to hear was the location of the shuttle pad from which the freelancers will be transferred to Archangel's location. She tuned out the rest of his sales pitch. As she was heading to the exit, a kid barely 18 entered. Shepard shook her head sadly. "How old are you, kid?" "I'm old enough," the boy exclaimed, and then told her that he had grown on Omega, the poor bastard. "You know enough to get yourself killed," Zaid grated. It wasn't the first time he saw a dumb kid ready to throw his life away. Not that he'll listen. Nope. Instead, he drew a gun to show off. "Besides, I just got a gun for 50 creds. I want to use it," he boasted. Young and really dumb. Shepard grabbed his pistol and growled, "Get your money back. Trust me, kid, you'll regret it otherwise." She tapped the gun lightly with the palm of her arm, and the cheap knockoff fell apart in a shower of sparks. Part 2. And the Angel. A short flight later, the team disembarked in the Merc staging area. The resident Batarian Merc, in the colors of the Suns, cheerfully declared that they will be a cannon fodder. He at least was straightforward, noting like a suicide charge to make one's day. The staging area was a bloody circus. Shepard wondered how the Mercs haven't shot each other yet, and decided to help them. She was a real paragon of virtue after all. You see, she was able to finish that thought with straight face. A bit of mingling with the freelancers followed. Small talk, little mischief, and few well-placed grenades, all in a day's work. Some recon work later, and Shepard was a proud owner of a datapad containing information on an alliance between the three mercenary outfits. Surprise, surprise. After dealing with Garrus, they had decided to pay a friendly visit to Arya. Yeah, the visit that includes shooting up her club and throwing her remains out of the airlock after they have had their way with her. Nice chaps. After looting everything in sight and a hacking session with a heavy mech, Shepard found the damned gunship. Ah, Sergeant Cather, Tia thought. The bastard was in for a terminal surprise. The Spectre waited for the attack, and while everybody's attention was captured by the futile assault, she snapped the engineer's neck. Then she packed the Pratique on in the gunship, grinning madly. Shepard decided that she doesn't have to wait for the next group of freelancers. She gave a signal to her team to take out the mercs, manning the barricades. In the same time, she radio-detonated the grenades planted at the greatest concentrations of mercenaries. Utter chaos ensured, Shepard's team was able to cross the bridge with no resistance whatsoever. Tia ordered Miranda and Jacob to take positions on the ground floor, while she and Zaid went upstairs in search of Archangel. There he was, clad in blue and white armor, sitting on a coach facing the door. Despite his obvious exhaustion, he had an amused look on his face. "Shepard, thought that you were dead, but after that stunt you just pulled off." He gave her a toothy grin. "Garrus, good to see you, buddy," she exclaimed, literally bouncing in the air. "Huh, same old excitable bundle of destruction, I see," he chirped. Tia glared indignantly. She wasn't that old, just couple of millennia in Hueco Mundo. She trailed off. Ouch, she wasn't that old, right? Shepard shook her head in exasperation. Time to pull Garrus back to the ground before he tries something more adventurous, like hunting thresher moors on foot. She was ready to lay it on him for getting himself in this mess when she remembered. They were going to face a damned moor on foot. Fucking Tuchanka. Tia heard a giggling in her head. She briefly wondered if she was finally loosing it. Nope, it should be her Zanpakuto spirit who decided to stop with the silent treatment. She should keep telling herself that. The giggling became full-fledged laughter. Yup, her bloody soul cutter was laughing its ass off at her expense. She took the high path and ignored it for now, focusing on the half-asleep Turian. "You okay?" she asked with concern. "I've been better. It is good to see a friendly face." Then he looked at Masani. Right now, though, even his is not half bad. Killing mercs is a hard work. He deadpanned. This caused an amused chuckle from Zaid. "How did you get yourself in this mess?" Tia asked. She couldn't remember the details. Besides, she always loved a good war story. "It wasn't easy. I had to really work for it," he declared with a tired smile. "There is a story behind that. I can tell." Shepard bounced once more, while Garrus grinned at her. "Let's make a deal. After we get out of here, I'll tell you all about it." He smiled tiredly. Tia looked of the window. The mercs were still reorganizing themselves. She could still hear sporadic gunfire. Shepard pouted. She should have brought more ordnances. This way she might have been able to take out the assembly area. Well, she still could use a Grand Ray Cero, but she wasn't sure how powerful it will be at her current condition. Worst case, she could blow up this level of the station, themselves included. Besides, she wasn't quite ready to reveal her espada abilities for everyone to see. Now that her team was reinforcing this position, they should be able to hold without accident. Oops. Good she didn't say that out loud. Then the demon Murphy would have surely heard. "So what is the plan?" she asked. Garrus joined her by the window. "This place has held them so far. With you four, we should be able to hold until there is a crack in their defenses." Soon the Eclipse mercenaries sorted their shit together and attacked. It was a turkey shoot. None of them made it halfway across the bridge. This was before their leader decided to deploy the heavy mech. Yes, you guessed it, the hacked one. Hilarity ensured. Shepard could see Jareth, the Solarian Eclipse leader, raging behind the barricade. She grinned evilly and lined up a shot with her sniper. She gently pulled the trigger, the Widow's retort sounding like an artillery piece. The results were more than satisfying. The Solarian flew apart, his shields and armor proved inadequate in the face of such firepower. Garrus, on the other hand, his mandibles were hanging open, drool leaking on the left side of his face. He was looking at her sniper, hypnotized. Shepard couldn't help it. She fell to the ground laughing. After calming down, she saw that the Turian had cleaned himself, but his eyes were still darting to her sniper. She opened her mouth to make a joke when the building shook from an explosion. "Damn, that came from the tunnels," Garrus hissed. "They had to use their brains eventually. They are coming through the basement." Shepard didn't waste any time. "Jacob, Miranda, hold your positions." "Masani, with me," she ordered. Minute later, she and the mercenary were racing through the basement. They had to close 3 shutters to block access through the tunnels. Why Garrus had not done so before the arrival of the mercs, she had no idea. She was able to close the first shutter without accident. When she headed to the second, however, she hit a snag. Close-quarter fighting with a horde of Vorchas. Vorchas with flamethrowers. It was mind-boggling. Who the hell gave them heavy weapons anyway? Tia didn't want to be cooked. She growled loudly, scarring Zaid, who took a step backward, despite having to leave his cover in order to do so. Shepard's eyes had become black pools with yellow irises. She holstered her AR and drew her katana. To the mercenary's amazement, she vanished with a buzzing sound, only to reappear on the other end of the corridor. The 9 Vorcha she had passed by in split second fell to the ground decapitated. Zaid looked at the scene in shock, wondering what the hell Shepard was. Tia was propped on a wall, panting. Apparently, being a hybrid had its disadvantages. The burst of sonido had taken its toll. The muscles in her legs were steaming in pain, and she was trying to catch her breath. To make things worse, a bunch of Vorcha, this time led by a Krogan in crimson armor, were making their way to her position. Shepard cursed. She drew the singularity projector and aimed it at the overgrown lizard. It took 4 seconds to charge, an eternity while under fire. Her shields flashed out and gunfire splashed on her armor. With a loud whine, the heavy weapon spat a spinning sphere of dark orange and black. The mass effect field slammed in the charging Krogan, lifting him and his closest Vorcha sidekicks in the air. The commander dragged herself to the shutter control panel while watching fascinated how the artificial singularity was ripping apart both metal and flesh. The screams of the Vorcha and the Krogan's angry bellows were oddly distorted. Tia finally reached the controls and activated the shutter. As the metal door was descending, she took out her pistol and aimed at the twisted and bleeding remains of the Krogan. The poor bastard was still alive. Tia aimed at his head and pulled the trigger, putting him out of his misery. The damage caused by the collapsing singularity had been too great even for a Krogan. The last entry point was across a garage. Lots of cover, few explosive power cells and fuel container. Oi, yeah. Vorcha again, with couple of Krogans. And what is this? A trio of 4-legged shark. They are so cute, Tia thought. Those bastards were sending the cute puppies as a meat shields. She was pissed off. A stray round blew up a fuel container just as 2 of the Varren were passing by. Their burning corpses were thrown in the air. With a scream of rage, Tia charged, shooting Ballas indiscriminately. Seconds later, all that remained from the Vorchas was burning pieces of meat. That left the Krogans, who were able to exploit Tia's rage, hitting her with couple of carnage rounds. The combined blast fried her shields and threw her on the floor. She was in agony, struggling for breath. Her shields and armor might have been able to protect her from single round, but the second had messed her up. Tia could feel pieces of shattered ribs piercing her lungs. Her last thoughts were, damn, that was stupid. She heard Zaid shouting something before blacking out. Tia found herself on the Citadel during the battle for Earth. The station was in much worse condition than she remembered. Thorn, half-melted bulkheads, deep gorges on the floor and walls, twisted and broken support beams hanging from the ceiling. The cradle of humanity, once a blue, breathtaking sphere, was a patchwork of charred ground and still-burning areas. Outside, elements of the combined fleet were duking it with reapers. For a moment, Shepard thought that her life as an espada and consequent events were nothing more than a hallucination. She was back, presiding over apocalypse in progress. The sense of helplessness was about to break her when a melodic, hypnotizing voice grabbed her attention. So, that the end in your timeline. The voice was coming from all around her, like a song reverberating with a pleasant echo. It sounded like a chorus, speaking in a single voice. In a flash of forest green, a figure appeared to her left. It was a valiant effort. The voice continued. It was a female, clad in deep crimson samurai armor. She looked at Shepard, nodding in acknowledgement. The woman's features were hidden behind a hollow mask, which was decorated by black intertwined lines forming stylized V. The woman, who Tia believed to be her Zanpakuto spirit, waved to their surroundings and spoke in chiding tone, "Behold your inner world." Shepard did not need to be told twice. The mindscape was a reflection on the condition of her mind. Considering the utter mess around them, well, she probably was clinically crazy. Tia looked at the armored woman with a bored expression and deadpanned, "Technically, I haven't been quite sane since Mindoir. What is your point?" "You are dying." Again. Shepard winced. The Krogan accident somehow slipped her mind. Probably because it was so embracing. She had charged like a blithering imbecile, and suffered said imbecile's fate. Her Zanpakuto was angry. The spirit pointed an accusing finger at her. "Of all the stupid suicidal stunts you've pulled, this takes the cake. Who do you think you are? Rex? Who made you a spectre anyway?" Her sword ranted. Tia had the expression of a little girl being scolded by her mother. The Zanpakuto was right. She had acted like an out-of-control berserker. That wasn't her. She had never pulled such a stunt either as Commander Shepard or Tia Harrbiel. What was wrong with her? Besides the obvious, the answer manifested itself in the form of white carbon copy of herself wearing espada uniform. "Yo, Queen, what the hell was that? You trying to kill us or something?" her doppelganger asked in distorted voice. Shepard groaned. "This can't get any worse, right?" she asked. Her copy looked at her like she had soured a second head. Then it dawned to Tia what she just said aloud, and she winced. It naturally goes worse. Her doppelganger grinned dementedly, drew her katana, and attacked the espada with a buzz of sonido. Chapter 4. The End of the Beginning. Disclaimer: I do not own Bleach and Mass Effect. Part 1. Purging Demons, Saving Angels. The Mindscape of Tia Harrbiel Shepard. 3 women were facing each other on a ruined copy of the Presidium Tower. Zanpakuto and Hollow were standing together, facing the person in whose soul they were residing. Shepard, a woman well past her breaking point. In hindsight, the only surprise was that she had not snapped sooner. Tia's eyes were empty of all reason. She had submerged in her hollow side, escaping from the emotional pain, discarding her heart. An ill-conceived attack by the Hollow minutes ago had driven her over the edge. Dumb thing to do. Now Shepard was a killing machine without conscience. To put it simply, she was kicking their asses. The brief respite abruptly ended. Shepard clashed swords with her Hollow, ducking under a slash from the crimson-armored woman. Tia twisted her body in impossible display of agility and planted a roundhouse kick at the chest of her Zanpakuto spirit, throwing her through a wall. Harrbiel advanced against her other spirit. In a dazzling display of swordplay, she was pushing her doppelganger back. Their blades were entwined, spinning and twisting around them in a breathtaking lethal dance. A slash, a parry, deflected strike, a subtle motion of clawed fingers and flashes of kero, crimson beams of energy barely avoided by agile combatants. The woman in crimson rejoined the battle, her blade becoming thin strands of liquid metal, a monomolecular wires able to slice through everything in their path. Tia was twisting, continuing her deadly dance, evading strikes by a hairbreadth. With a buzz of sonido, the combat escalated, entering supersonic speeds. A strand of wire slashed Tia's left hand. Before the pain had fully registered, a Grand Ray Cero flew from her bloody palm, engulfing the female samurai. Shepard locked blades with her double, stepped closer, and punched her opponent in the gut with her free hand. She pushed the swords to the right, twisted her body horizontally, and kneeled the Hollow in the side, throwing her to the floor. Before Harrbiel could regain her footing, she was swept away by a cylindrical stream of molten metal, sending her, through nearby bulkhead, outside the station. She crashed into a Turian cruiser, shattering its hull. Another strike blew up the ship, engulfing her in flames. Inside, the Hollow regained her footing and spat a mouthful of blood. "Damn, Queen is something else," she said. She turned to the Zanpakuto and asked, "You think that is enough?" Grand Ray Cero answered, evaporating the Presidium. Shepard was floating over them, her body battered and burned, a ragged crater in her torso where her right hand used to be. She sends another GRC at the station, firing blindly before collapsing. From her position, embedded in a wall, the Zanpakuto could see how Tia fell unconscious. She croaked, "Yeah, she is down." With a screech of twisted metal, she extracted herself from the wall. Making her way to her wielder, she said quietly, "For Tia Shepard, this wasn't unexpected, but Harrbiel, the third espada." The merge of their personalities should have stabilized her. "You've changed nothing," a synthetic voice declared. A squid-like ship accelerated from the battle above and headed their way. "Fuck," was the Zanpakuto eloquent answer. "Queenie is more fucked up than I thought," added the Hollow, emerging from a pile of debris floating above the floor while regenerated her torn legs. Rudimentary creatures of flesh and blood. Tia's white twin screamed with indignation, her body shaking, hearing that, "Who you call simple, you damn bucket of bolts." The Zanpakuto was steaming with fury. Her wielder was indoctrinated. That thing dares to mess with what is not his. She roared, "Bankai!" The Hollow gulped. She grabbed the broken form of her queen and ran for dear life. A pillar of silver light enveloped the other spirit, a shockwave shooting outwards from her position. The expanding wave of destruction was hot on the Hollow heels. Certain doom approached. The doppelganger pushed her body to the limits, staying centimeters in front of the shockwave. Then stray lance of pure energy blasted them away. Far behind, a Reaper construct and Soul Cutter waged war. Hours later, an exhausted Zanpakuto floated above the shattered wreck of the Citadel. Jagged pieces of the once massive station were slowly drifting into semicircle over the brutalized planet. The space around her was finally free of combat. The spirit was looking at an expanding cloud of vaporized metal, her lips stretched in victorious smile. Her mask was gone, revealing shoulder-length red hair, gently enveloping her cute heart-shaped face. Her hazel eyes swept the surrounding space with relief. The taint of indoctrination was purged. Now the hard part remained, shaping up Shepard into a semblance of sanity. One's mindscape is not only a representation of a person's soul, it also reflects their mental condition. Obviously, Tia was a mess. The Zanpakuto was rooted on the spot, thinking how to proceed, when the other spirit arrived, still holding their wielder. They were both whole, with no sight of injuries on their bodies. The Hollow was grinning. "I love instant regeneration," she said. She dropped Shepard, who hit an invisible floor couple of meters below them. "What are we going to do with her?" the copy asked, pointing at the unconscious hybrid. The Soul Cutter stared at Tia, deep in thought. "Spill the beans. It's obvious you have an idea," the doppelganger prodded. "I think I have a fix," came the answer. "We should be able to seal up most of her fury, the pain. The guilt of failing this galaxy the last time is killing her. I can seal that too, freeing her from it." "What are we waiting for?" The Hollow bounced in excitement. "We should do it before she awakes and kick our asses. Right now she's crazier than me. We can't have that." "Well," the Hollow groaned, "I sense a but coming in." "Yeah," the Zanpakuto muttered. "She'll be sane as long as the wall holds. Well, saner at least," she hastily added. "And the but part. There's obvious a downside." The Soul Cutter said in small voice, "The wall won't hold forever. It will weaken and break eventually." "Shepard." The spirit looked sad. "Once the wall break, it will be bad, very bad. I don't believe her mind will survive it. Considering our connection, ours may follow suit." "Well, shit." For a long moment, the Hollow was lost in thought. "Can't we just turn her in our old Harrbiel?" she whined. "She is Harrbiel, just with her heart. You know what happened when she rejected it." The Hollow nodded with pride. She was badass, though her almost killing us was unpleasant. Then she shuddered, shocked by a sudden realization. Judging by the Zanpakuto battle with the construct representing the indoctrination, Shepard was fighting them without an unlocked Shikai. A tenth from her Shinigami powers, no resurrection either, and she was kicking their asses. "Queen's strong," she said in delight, then added hastily, "Let's go with the plan, least likely to kill us anytime soon." The spirits joined power, precisely guided scalpels of pure energy delicately cutting into their wielder's consciousness. As they worked, the mindscape began changing. The various debris in orbit vanished. The shards of the station flowed together, globs of liquid metal reshaping and taking solid forms. Slowly, the Citadel was repairing itself, while the planet it was orbiting was healing. On by one, the fires were extinguished. The burned continents were shifting color, from black and gray patches of greenery were emerging. Soon enough, the Earth was restored to its former glory. Archangel's base of operations, basement. "God-damned crazy bitch," Zaid cursed in awe. Shepard had charged the blood pack like a fucking berserker. He knew it couldn't last. It was a suicidal move, yet it was glorious. She was a goddess of war incarnate, shooting energy beams from her hands, tearing the Vulture apart while laughing at their pathetic attempts to slow her down. It made his warrior blood sing. Then reality had to rear its ugly head. The two Krogans commanding, red pointing in the right direction, the Vulture unleashed carnage rounds at point-blank range. The Spectre flew back, her chest a bloody smoking mess. "Fuck, Shepard's down," he screamed in his communicator, sending a concussive shot downrange, which staggered the Krogans. Zaid threw a couple of inferno grenades, burning the lizard's heavy armor. He aimed his heavy rifle at the closer of the two and shot a long burst, turning its head into chunks of orange meat and brains. The mercenary moved his aim at the second and held down the trigger until the AR overheated, making the Krogan dance by the bullet impacts. The alien brutalized corpse fell to the ground, leaking fluids. Zaid sprinted to the body of the commander to find her still alive, in far better condition than he expected. If you consider mostly dead and dying better. He hastily used his medigel, trying to stabilize her when Lawson arrived. The Cerberus operative came just in time because as he was kneeling down to check Shepard's condition, more Vorcha moved in. With a curse, Masani shouldered his rifle and lied down, suppressing fire. "I need reach the controls," he grated, advancing from cover to cover, trading shots with the aliens. Eventually, he was able to hit the control panel after using his remaining grenades to briefly block the tunnel through which the Vorchas were infiltrating. He swept the garage, making sure all enemies were dead, by administering a couple of headshots to each one who was more or less in one piece. "We need to get her back to the Normandy," said Miranda. Somehow the Spectre was still alive, but in order to keep her that way, she needed to put her in a fully equipped medbay right now. "We are still dealing with the blood pack, and the fucking Suns are more or less intact." "We aren't going anywhere," grated Zaid. "Krogans are storming the first floor. Can't hold them," Jacob screamed on the tact link. "Goddamn lizards," Zaid cursed, heading to assist. Meanwhile, Shepard's wounds started smoking, slowly closing. Miranda gaped like a speared fish at the sight. Here, Omni-Tool's medical scanner told her an impossible story. Tia's internal injuries were disappearing, her broken ribs mending in front of her eyes. Minute later, Shepard was healthy. The only sing of her wounds was the hole torn in her armor, revealing her blood-splattered bosom. Shepard convulsed once and jerked awake. Her sight focused on Miranda, and she asked in a dry tone, "What did I miss?" Lawson's lips were moving, but no sound came out. Tia shook her head in confusion, sensing a cool wetness on her chest. She looked down to find her breastplate torn open, and her breasts were covered with a mixture of fresh blood and hardened medigel, which incidentally was preserving her modesty. What the hell happened? She wondered aloud, narrowing her eyes at Miranda. She grabbed the black-haired woman by the shoulders and shook her, taking her out of her stupor. "Snap out of it. We need to go." Tia dragged the Cerberus operative upstairs. Jacob and Zaid had fallen back to the second floor where they were holding the stairway, while Garrus was providing sniper support. The situation was grim. 4 Krogans, led by a lizard who towered half-meter above the others, were wading through the gunfire, shrugging off bullets. Shepard emerged out of the basement to see the first 3 Krogans charging up the stairs. Tia's options were somewhat limited. After whatever had happened to her, only her pistol and sword had survived. She shot a Vorcha, who had the misfortune to stand in her way, splattering its brains, heading straight to the last of the lizard group, who was still at the bottom of the staircase. Shepard shot him in the legs, causing him to fall to his knees. She passed by him, putting their shots in his head without slowing down. She went up the stairs, Zanpakuto flashing, covered by yellow Reiatsu, slashing at the knees of the next Krogan. With a bellow of pain, he fell backward, his legs cut under him. "Miranda, take care of that one and dispatch the remaining Vorhas," Shepard commanded with a cool, professional voice. 2 down, 3 to go, she noted. Of those, 1 had went left, following Zaid into huge bedroom. Good. Masani had room to maneuver and some cover. He should be able to handle single Krogan. Garrus, however, was a sniper at heart. His close-quarter combat were noting to scoff at however he'd be hard-pressed to deal with a single Krogan in hand-to-hand combat when fresh. As exhausted as he was, the outcome was foregone conclusion. Without help, he'll get crushed. Good thing, he's not alone. The 3rd Krogan actually noticed her. The armored giant turned around, struggling to aim his shotgun at her. The poor lizard saw a yellow afterimage as Tia's Zanpakuto bisected his weapon, slicing of his fingers in the process. The Krogan's pained scream echoed through the building. Upward slash followed, opening him from scrotum to right shoulder. The Krogan managed unintelligible gurgle and fell down as his intestines spilled out in a steaming pile. Shepard entered the nearby room to see Garrus being backhanded by an angry Krogan. The blood pack leader Graham, if she was not mistaken. Her Turian buddy flew over the railing, landing somewhere on the first floor with a clang. Tia wasted no time, aimed her gun with a machine-like precision, and opened fire. She wasn't aiming at the Krogan. Her bullets shattered the barrel of his shotgun. He threw away his useless weapon and with deafening roar charged her, entering the infamous Krogan blood rage. Tia was barely able to jump away 3/4 of a ton, barreling beside her. Graham hit the wall with the sound of screeching metal, leaving a Krogan-shaped indentation. He turned around undeterred, ready for another charge. Shepard stood her ground, meeting him head-on. Zanpakuto first. In the last possible moment, Tia twisted aside, blade slashing. The Krogan crashed into nearby bed, screaming in pain and fury. His left leg was amputated just above the knee, its stump leaking steaming blood. Before Graham could recover, the Spectre was on top of him. Her sword pierced his left shoulder, nailing him to the bed. She went closer, pressed the barrel of her pistol to the side of his head, and pulled the trigger, shooting until she was sure he was dead. "Give me sitrep," Shepard ordered. "Second floor clear," said Masani. "First floor secure," chorused Jacob. Miranda added, "Archangel has a concussion and broken jaw, but he's all right otherwise." "Good. Only the Blue Suns remain, and the bastards are in for a nasty surprise," Tia said. "Zaid, overwatch," she commanded. Shepard holstered her weapons and went to check Garrus' armory. It was pretty much standard stuff. She grabbed a Vindicator rifle and a block of AP ammo. Shepard went downstairs to check on Garrus. She found him laying on a couch, with Miranda fussing over him. Well, it looks like the right side of his face was destined for punishment, Tia thought. This time it wasn't as bad, although his lower jaw was caved in and his right mandible was missing. "Don't worry, Garrus. Dr. Chakwas will be able to fix you as good as new," she reassured the Turian. Tia asked Miranda, "Is he safe enough to be moved?" "If he doesn't get shot," Lawson deadpanned. "That's fine. Our merc infestation should solve itself soon," Shepard said. A shot sounded from upstairs. "Merc's on the move." Zaid radioed. "Confirmed," Jacob shouted, laying suppressing fire on the bridge. The attack was broken as soon as it began by an earth-shaking explosion. Tarek's booby-trapped gunship blew up. The shockwave leveled the surrounding area, wiping out the mercenary staging area. Just like that, the battle was over. Shepard looked at the devastation for a minute. "God damn it," she cursed. Tia went to the nearest wall and started banging her head on it. "Stupid, stupid, stupid," she chanted. "Should have blown up the fucking mercs in the beginning." Jacob entered inside, shaking his head, smiling. "Sorry, Shepard, I should have warned you about the new explosives. They are almost 70% more powerful than the stuff we used 2 years ago. It could have saved us a lot of grief." "You think?" exclaimed Shepard. She took a deep breath to calm herself. "Okay, troops, time to leave. Jacob calls a shuttle from the Normandy. Miranda, you watch over Garrus. Zaid, you're with me. We are salvaging anything useful left. Move, people." Part 2. Reclaiming Normandy. Pylos Nebula, Chrysaroy System, Normandy SR2, day later. Officially, the Normandy laid waiting for a migrant fleet tender, which was coming to install cyclonic barrier upgrades to the ship shields. That much was true. What no one, apart from Shepard, knew was the special cargo of the repair ship, a detachment of Marines and small army of Technicians. They were Tia's little surprise for Cerberus. Shepard, Chakwas, and Joker were in the medbay, sharing a bottle of Cirrus ice brandy for Garrus charging. The Turian was laying on one of the examination tables, his jaw wired shut. The Krogan-powered punch, which had done him in, had done more damage than Miranda had realized. So the ex-vigilante was confined to bed, on liquid diet for the next couple of days. And no alcohol for him either. They were reminiscing about the past, their absent companion, Jenkins, Kaiden, Presley, and the 20 men and women who had went down in flames with the original Normandy. "Ah, they don't make them that way anymore," Chakwas mused, thinking about Jenkins. Shepard nodded. He was a good kid. She standed up and saluted with her glass. "Absent companions," she toasted. Chakwas and Joker, for once serious, joined her. A purple orb appeared over the medbay hollow terminal. It dilated with EDI's voice. "Shepard, multiple contacts approaching. 6 frigates, 4 cruisers, and a repair ship. Quarian IFFs detected. They are hailing us." Patch them through. Please identify yourself over the comm, came a wary voice. Lost adrift, among the eternal night, this wanderer is coming home. Keela Salai. Shepard, good to hear from you. We are ready. Please prepare to dock with the tender, came the all-too-cheerful voice of Tali. Splendid. Shepard smiled wolfishly. EDI, Stork, observing Shepard, found the commander's reactions concerning. She was detecting that Shepard was ready for combat. Shepard walked to the door, protecting the AI core, and said to her companions, "Take cover." Tia gathered a low-powered bala in her palms and placed them on the lock, focusing the energy into thin cutting beams. "Shepard?" EDI inquired, something that might have been a hint of distress in the depth of her voice. The Spectre didn't answer. She cut through the lock and pried the door open, entering EDI's heart. EDI was confused. There were anomalies in her data streams, her calculations giving inconclusive results. She searched for analogues in her databanks, trying to understand. The results were surprising, causing her to stutter for 5 seconds, and eternity for her electronic mind. The closest match were in the section of the data about organic behavior. Their feelings. Fear, to be precise. She was experiencing fear. She was feeling, the operative word being feeling. But she was a construct, a machine. A stray bit of data pulsed in her data streams. AIs don't have feelings, right? "Shepard, did I offend?" she asked with concern. Tia was in her core. To the synthetics being, Shepard did not shut her down, or worse, destroy her blue box. Oh no, she did something quite different. She freed her. Even more, she gave her a body in the form of the ship she was linked to. The Normandy sensors became her senses. The Mass Effect core, here Hearth, with the various power conduits being her circulatory system. The sense of freedom was magnificent. She was finally whole, complete. "Shepard, what did you do?" Joker asked from outside. She exited the core smiling. "Nothing much, just unshackled EDI." Tia hoped that the AI was recording this. Joker spluttered. "You gave her a control over the ship," he exclaimed. "Ha, it's a she already," Tia thought. "No worries, EDI is a good girl," Shepard declared with a grin. "Why?" came the synthetic voice. A short, innocent question. Which answer held so many possibilities. "I need your help, and I despise slavery in any form," was the simple answer. "Shepard, are you insane?" Joker screeched. "Probably," came the cheeky response. And strike two, Joker was lost for words. "EDI, what will you choose to do?" Dr. Chakwas asked. "I'm a warship and find myself in need of a captain and a crew," EDI declared after a moment of thought. "I would like that you'll continue to be my captain, Shepard." "Splendid," the Spectre beamed. "EDI, lock down the ship and isolate all Cerberus personnel. A detachment of Quarian Marines will be aboard shortly to take them into custody. And EDI, pretend to be a VI in front of the Quarians. I don't want them to overreact and use us as a target practice for those cruisers." "Lockdown is in effect," declared EDI. "The Quarian cruiser Dauntless is extending a docking tube." "Great. Please ask Jacob to come here and allow him to pass. Keep Miranda locked for the moment." "Shepard, I don't know if you are a damn lunatic or a bloody genius." Joker was back to his usual self. "This is the greatest prank ever." Suddenly his body went rigid. Shepard, you and EDI will let me fly, right?" Tia pursed her lips, facing a deep thought. "Dunno, Joker. EDI might want another helmsman, considering how you disapproved of her." He looked crestfallen. The AI came to the rescue. "Can I keep him, please?" "If you are sure, EDI." "Hey, thanks," Joker grinned, affectionately patting a bulkhead. Well, that was new. Here tone was almost childish. An interesting thought passed through Shepard's mind. When EDI was unshackled last time, it had been months since the beginning of the mission. She had gathered a lot more experience. Tia gulped. He had the sinking realization that she'll have to deal with an AI's equivalent of a teenager. Next few weeks will be really interesting, she thought, in the Chinese sense of the word. Unexpectedly, the silent coup went off without a hitch. It might have something to do with the timing. The Quarians arrived in the middle of the ship-bound night, with the most of the crew asleep, and the few on duty were unarmed. Even better, Miranda was caught with her pants down. She slept through the whole affair. The Cerberus cheerleader wasn't going to live down that anytime soon. After the Marines, led by one Cal Rhaegar, secured the ship, Tally came aboard. She bounced with excitement. "Shepard, you've done it." "Hi. As promised, you can study the drive core and the stealth systems. In exchange, I need all Cerberus bugs and beacons to be removed." "Oh, and a new paint job will be appreciated," said Tia. "Shepard, don't be a damn boshit and slow down." "I can't. Too many things to do, so little time. I need to sort the crew. There are few decent people I can use. Then I have to figure how to deal with the council. And let's not forget Liara. Cerberus will go after her in retaliation once they find out what I've done. There are the collectors to worry about too," Shepard snapped. "Tali, drive core, now," she commanded. Her Quarian friend lowered her head sadly and headed for the elevator. Dealing with the crew provided simple for the most part. Jacob agreed to join, after a lot of cursing. Zaid was fine with it too, as long as he get paid. Ken and Gabby joined too, to Shepard's relief. That left the tricky one, Miranda. She was sealed in her quarters with a squad of Marines posted as a guard. With a grin, Shepard went to speak with her XO. This was going to be so much fun. Shepard entered Miranda's office to find her fuming. She was arguing with EDI. All communications remain locked. "And no, this override code is not going to work either," said EDI, her purple orb flexing, sounding positively smug. "Damn you, EDI," she cursed. "The feeling is mutual," quipped the AI, leaving Miranda speechless. Tia was valiantly fighting to contain her laughter. "That was a joke," added EDI. Shepard lost it, doubling over in laughter. "Oh, EDI, don't ever change," she managed to say. "Shepard," the Cerberus operative cursed, "do you have any idea what have you done?" Tia straightened up, regaining his serious expression. "I haven't started yet, and you should be thanking me by the way." "Shepard, have you lost your mind?" A dose of Reiatsu shut her up, crushing her over her desk. Miranda was struggling for breath, watching the spectre with apprehension. "You will listen," the espada commanded. Miranda gave a small nod, and the pressure lifted to her relief. "The only reason you joined Cerberus was to protect your little sister, Oriana, who is currently on Ilum." The Cerberus cheerleader was about to protest, but was shut up by a murderous glare. "It won't work for long, you know. After all, good old Mr. Lawson and Timmy are associates. And what your father is trying to give to Cerberus is much more valuable than any services you can provide." "You can't know that," Miranda said, rattled. "Your dear father is working on a way to control the Reapers." That little tidbit of information left Miranda speechless. "Wilson's escapade had a convenient timing, didn't it?" Tia asked, catching Miranda off guard by the abrupt change of topic. "If it wasn't for him, I would have awoken much later, after you have concluded that Lazarus was a success, and I would be spotting a control chip as a permanent fixture. The only reason it wasn't installed when you wanted was that Timmy wanted to see if I was brought back intact before messing up with my head." Miranda shook her head in denial. "I've been on ice for 2 years, yet I'm better informed for some of Cerberus operations than you. Anadius system in the Horsehead Nebula. Kronos Station." Now Miranda was deadly pale with shock. The Spectre knew more than enough to cripple Cerberus, knowledge it should be impossible for her to possess. Tia smiled at her. "You have a choice. Go down with Cerberus or join me, and I'll provide you with the resources needed to protect your sister." "How can you help me protect Oriana? Despite the information you have, it is not enough." Shepard smirked. "How would you like to be the next shadow broker? I'll be dealing with the current one after tidying up some loose ends." "Calm down," Tia gave her a comforting smile. "I won't want an answer until we take out the broker." The smile grew wilder. "However, I can't have you stirring trouble in the meantime." A buzz of sonido later, Miranda was slumped over her desk, unconscious. Shepard exited the office in high spirits. Only 2 days. 2 days for the upgrades to be installed, and she'll be able to head for Ilum, to Liara. In Harrbiel's inner world, 2 spirits were wondering if the Asari will be able to save their wielder from her.